Welcome to MyShliach Story Hour Chassidim series.
You know, Kindalach, there are a lot of very special people in this world. A lot of very heilige, edele, gute Menschen, a lot of gute Yidden. And there are many people, thousands of Chassidim of other Rebbes. And that's how they get their chayis. And that's how they get their hashpah, through being connected to their Rebbe. Obviously, we're zeiche to be Chassidim, Lubavitcher Chassidim, Chassidim of the Reish B'nai Yisrael, the Nasi Ador, the leader of the entire generation, the Moshe Rabbeinu of our generation, our Rebbe. And as Chassidim, we know that we only take orders from our Rebbe. You know, there's a story of Reb Hillel Paritcher that goes like this. Once, when Reb Hillel was traveling from town to town, as he often did as part of his shlichus given to him by his Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, he one time passed through the city of Perislav. And in that city, he was hosted by an elderly Yid Shamayim, a Yid who was actually the Shochet of that town. Edele Yid, the Yid Shamayim. And he was a Chosid, not a Lubavitcher Chosid. He was a Ruzhiner Chosid. He was a Chosid of the Heilige Ruzhiner. One time, when Reb Hillel was staying at this Sheikhet's house, the Chosid, the Ruzhiner Chosid, asked Reb Hillel, please, why don't you come spend some time with me by my Rebbe, the Heilige Ruzhiner? I'll tell you about him. I'll tell you about the moifsim, the miracles that he does. I'll share with you some of the divrei Torah that he says. He's really a great tzaddik. It's not for no reason that they call him the Heilige Ruzhiner. Everybody says the Heilige Ruzhiner. Please, Reb Hillel, I think you should come with me to come spend some time by the Ruzhiner. And he begged and he pleaded, and every time Reb Hillel was in town, he would ask him to come, until finally Reb Hillel agreed to come meet the Heilige Ruzhiner. And so, together, Reb Hillel and his friend the Sheikhet traveled to spend Shabbos in Ruzhin together with the Sheikhet's Rebbe. And as you can imagine, throughout Shabbos, the Heilige Ruzhiner showered Reb Hillel with much derech eretz. He showed his guest a lot of kavod and respect because he knew that Reb Hillel Paritcher was no simple man. He was a Chosid, a Lubavitcher Chosid, an extreme Talmid Chacham, a Yid Shamayim, and like we know from other stories, the way that Tzemach Tzedek described Reb Hillel as half Chosid, half Rebbe, and the Heilige Ruzhiner was no simple person. He was able to realize the greatness of Reb Hillel. Now, the way it was in those days, and even today by other Chassidus, the highlight of Shabbos is Shalosh Shudas. We as Lubavitcher Chassidim generally don't have Shalosh Shudas. That's a conversation for a different time. The Rebbe has actually two sichos about it. The Rebbe discusses why not. But in the Welt, there's a mitzvah to have 3 su'udas on Shabbos. We have Friday night, Shabbos afternoon after davening, or Shabbos in the morning. And then after Mincha is Shalosh Shudas. We don't make Kiddush, we wash, and we sing Minei Chala. And by the other Rebbe Lach, by other Chassidus, that was the highlight of Shabbos. That's where the Rebbe would say divrei Torah and sing Negunim. And because it's close to the end of Shabbos, the su'ud of Shalosh Shudas would go for many hours deep into the night. And so, during this visit of Reb Hillel and the Sheikhet to the Ruzhiner, during the Shalosh Shudas meal, it was accompanied with wonderful divrei Torah and beautiful zmiris, and it extended deep into the night hours. And suddenly, Reb Hillel benched, daven Ma'ariv, while the Shalosh Shudas Tish was still going on. And he runs over to the side, he grabs some wine, and he makes Havdalah. And the Ruzhiner is still in the middle of explaining some profound, deep concept in Torah. He's still in the middle of saying Dvar Torah. And the Sheikhet, the host, who's hosting Reb Hillel, doesn't understand. We had such a beautiful Shabbos. This is the highlight of Shabbos. And Reb Hillel, instead of sitting and enjoying, is rushing to get out of here. He's benching, he's davening Ma'ariv, didn't daven with everybody else. He's making Havdalah, and he looks like he's in a rush, he's got to go. Now, the Sheikhet knew that he had to go take Reb Hillel home because he promised Reb Hillel that he's going to do whatever he needs him to do. So the Sheikhet also quickly davened and started to head to the door to catch up with Reb Hillel. And when he caught up Reb Hillel was like in a big rush. He says, please, get me a balagola, get me a wagon driver immediately. I need to go home right away. Okay, I'll get you a wagon driver. So they finally flag down a wagon driver, a balagola, and they climb onto the wagon. And Reb Hillel starts urging the driver, telling him to whip the horses, go faster, please, take me out of the town. And Reb Hillel rushed him as if they were running away from a house that was on fire. And the Sheikh couldn't understand what was so wrong. What happened? Why is Reb Hillel rushing out of the Tish, out of the Farbrengen, out of the Shalosh Shudas of my Rebbe, of the Ruzhiner? And where is he going in this late hour at night? What was so terrible? What was going on? Why is he running like his life is in danger? Surprisingly, as they passed the last houses of the city, Reb Hillel finally told the wagon driver to stop and wait for him. Reb Hillel climbed out of the wagon and headed towards a little forest, the woods that was near the town. Reb Hillel walks into the forest and stands next to a tree. The wagon driver is sitting on the wagon, taking his time, relaxing, while the Sheikhet is trying to figure out what in the world is Reb Hillel doing by that tree. And so the Sheikhet decides he's going to get off the wagon and slowly tiptoe into the forest, stand close to Reb Hillel so he can see what's going on. He's going to go get a better look. And so the wagon driver is told by the Sheikhet to wait as he gets off the wagon, slowly tiptoes his way over to the forest, a few trees away from Reb Hillel from behind, so Reb Hillel doesn't see that he's following him. And the Sheikhet sees how Reb Hillel stood there for a very long time and that his lips were moving. But since he was speaking quietly, the Sheikhet couldn't hear everything that he was saying. However, one thing the Sheikhet was able to hear. He hears Reb Hillel saying, Rebbeinu Shalom, he's taka a tzaddik. He's taka a tzaddik of the highest stature, a great tzaddik. He's not just a regular tzaddik. He's a big tzaddik. He's not just another person. He's not a regular tzaddik. But Rebbeinu Shalom, he's not my Rebbe. There's another story that Rabbi Yamin Kletzker would say, or maybe we'll talk about Rabbi Yamin Kletzker another time, after he spent a week together with the tzaddik Reb Shlomo Karliner, and he was asked to become a Chosid of Reb Shlomo Karliner. So Rabbi Yamin Kletzker responded, saying about Reb Shlomo Karliner, he is a Rebbe, but he's not mine. I am a servant, but not his. I am a Chosid of the Lubavitch Rebbe. I'm a Chassid of our Rebbe. I'm a Shliach of our Rebbe, and that's the only person I'll be mekusher to and I take orders from. And that doesn't mean Chas v'Shalom not to have derech eretz for other people that are, leaders of big groups of Yidden, and maybe big Yiddish Shamayim themselves. But a Rebbe is not einer. We have one Rebbe, and that's who we take orders from. And that's what we go to for brachas. And that's what Reb Hillel was in essence saying in this story as well. He's a big tzaddik. He's just not my Rebbe. Reb Hillel, besides for being a big chassid and for being a big Talmid Chacham, he was also very, very meticulous, very careful in Shmiras HaMitzvahs. And like we said earlier, in one of the first episodes of this series, that Reb Hillel never compromised. Regardless of where he was, or what he was doing, or who he was speaking to, Reb Hillel always kept his standards of Torah mitzvahs. So, if he didn't eat flesh before speaking to a sheikhet and checking the chalif, for example, even if he was very hungry, or even if he was afraid that by not eating the flesh he might offend the people who are hosting him, he still didn't do it because these were his standards, for example. Another minig that Reb Hillel had, and that some Chassidim had also, and I know a couple of people even today that still do it, that many Chassidim had a minhag that they would prepare all their water, the whole water supply that they needed for Pesach. Let's say they needed 50 gallons of water throughout the whole Pesach. They would fill up 50 gallons of water from the well before Pesach and store it in barrels and buckets in their house. This way, on Pesach, they wouldn't have to go to the well to take new water, and there would be no concern that a goy chas v'shalom maybe took water from the well on Pesach with a bucket that wasn't kosher Pesach, because they were so concerned about chas v'shalom maybe having a little bit of chametz. They always made sure to fill up buckets and buckets and barrels of water in their house before Pesach. And Reb Hillel had this minhag also. One Pesach, Reb Hillel opened one of the barrels to take a drink, opened one of the bottles of water that had been prepared before Yom Tov. To Reb Hillel's shock and dismay, he discovered a kernel of wheat floating on top of the water. This is chametz gomer. It's wheat that's wet. It's pasht chametz. Such an event would make any Yid upset and horrified. How much more so Reb Hillel, who was so meticulous and careful in any little mitzvah, every detail of the mitzvah. And indeed, Reb Hillel was very, very disheartened. How could such a thing ever happen? He asked himself. What did I do or not do to have this happen to me? What did I do wrong? And after a deep and lengthy cheshbon nefesh, Reb Hillel came to the following conclusion, Kinderlach. Listen, Reb Hillel said to himself, when I come to Lubavitch, I try as much as possible to avoid being seen by the Rebbe. And the reason why I don't want the Rebbe to look at me, I want to look at the Rebbe, of course, but I don't want the Rebbe to look at me, is because the Rebbe doesn't need to see my grubkeit, doesn't have to look at my grub upon him. Grub in English translates as coarseness, but es hat nicht kein Tam. Grubkeit. If you don't know what it means, ask your father or older brother or someone to teach pshat grubkeit, something you shouldn't be familiar with. He says, I don't need the Rebbe to look at me. I don't need the Rebbe to see my grubkeit. Says the Reb Hillel, if only I would have allowed the Rebbe to see me, then the Rebbe's look would have such a profound impact on me, and that would have saved me from this Aveda. You see what Reb Hillel says? I was so careful about filling up the water before Pesach that makes no sense that there should be chametz inside. The only reason is that the Rebbe didn't look at me. The reason why the Rebbe didn't look at me is because I was concerned of being embarrassed and showing my grub upon him to the Rebbe. Now, Kinderlach, for those that merited, that had the big schus of being able to look at the Rebbe during a Yechidus or at a Farbrengen or by dollars, they realize how special that moment is. And as Reb Hillel says, the look from the Rebbe protects. But you might think to yourself, I'm born after Gimel Tammuz, 20 years after Gimel Tammuz, 15 years after Gimel Tammuz, 25 years after Gimel Tammuz. I didn't see the Rebbe. The Rebbe didn't look at me. I didn't look at the Rebbe. How can I say to myself that the Rebbe's look is going to protect me when I didn't have that opportunity? Kindalach. The Rebbe addresses this. There are many letters in which the Rebbe encouraged many people to envision, to imagine that they're looking at the Rebbe. And as a matter of fact, the Rebbe even told people that they should carry a picture of the Rebbe with them in their pocket. So when they feel that the Yetzer Hara is getting too strong, they could take out the picture of the Rebbe and look at the picture of the Rebbe, and that would give them kayach. Rabbi Say, we live in an unprecedented time. We have the opportunity to look at the Rebbe for hours and hours and hours more than many people that were born before Gimel Tammuz. We have access to so many videos of the Rebbe. Pashut hours and hours of videos of the Rebbe. And hundreds of thousands of pictures of the Rebbe that you can look at. And it's all easily available. And a lot of it is free. It doesn't even cost you any money to look at. When we look at the picture of the Rebbe, when we look at a video of the Rebbe, Rabbi Say, that has an effect. We know that this is the Rebbe, this is our Rebbe, and we are his Chassidim. There are a lot of other good people, but a Rebbe is not einer. And the look from the Rebbe has the opportunity to help us in our Shlichus, to help us in our Avodas Hashem. You know, the story of Yosef HaTzadik and Eishes Peitifar in Chumash, when Peitifar's wife wanted to do an Aveda with Yosef HaTzadik. What stopped Yosef HaTzadik from doing that Aveda? He saw in his mind his father's face, the face of Yaakov Avinu, the Tzaddik, the Nasi Ador. And when he saw that gave Yosef HaTzadik the Keach not to do the Aveda. It's not a new thing, Kindalach. When we think in our mind a picture of the Rebbe, a nigun of the Rebbe, that helps us in any situation that we're in. The Rebbe gives us the Keach, the Rebbe wird gefin Naveg. We always have to remember, sich ibig gegeben zum Rebbe, to give ourselves over to the Rebbe, to realize that he is the Rebbe and we are the Chassidim.